Ingram Smith, Bud Elliott back again for another episode of the Nolecast. All right, man, it's that time of year again. It's time for the positional preview series. We've done this for, I don't know, 13 years now or however long it's been. Always some of the podcasts I look forward to the most, both in that it's great to be able to talk about what this, what these groups are going to look like, but also the fact that season is but only so far away. So we're going to start it off with quarterbacks tonight. Look forward to that. Bud, talented group there. A lot of really young, intriguing prospects that Florida State's been able to add. And then you've got DJ Ungale, who's a player that, just from my perspective, has done nothing that impressed me since he's been to Tallahassee. Now, how much does that matter? I don't know, but the kid's certainly reshaped his body pretty quickly from where he was when he came on his visit. I can just tell you from having spoken to his teammates, people think really highly of him, about how he goes about his business, and is a impressive young man. So excited to talk about the quarterbacks tonight and get an idea as to what this group might look like in 2024.
Yeah, man, me too. ESPN had an article a couple months ago, and I read it and was like, I just don't buy this. And it was talking about like the quality of quarterback rooms and like the future of quarterback rooms. Man, I like FSU's quarterback room a hell of a lot more than this article does. Shoot, you get DJ, who I think is floor is decent and ceiling is clearly more than that. A guy that I think is a proven commodity. All of the indications that we have had from Florida State, the people I talk to, the people you talk to, what we're able to see at practice, is that he is what they thought he would be, and maybe a little bit better. Like Mike Norvell has just straight come out and said that. He's got, how old is he? Like 24 or an older 23? I mean, he's not young, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe he's 23 years old.
I mean, he was recruiting class of 2020. So his first year in college was the COVID year at Clemson. I mean, this was his fifth year of college football. It's an adult in the room, like you look at him, he does fit. Now, granted, like he's always been massive. Okay. Like he was a legitimate baseball pitcher too in high school. I remember I interviewed him at the, back when we still had Nike camps, like not in the Under Armour, this is 2019. And he actually couldn't work out at that thing because he had messed up his wrist pitching. And I was like, this guy is like grown ass man status, to be sure. I'm very happy to see that he reshaped his body. I mean, he's got to be. If I gave you an over under of 239 and a half, where are you going?
It's to his current weight.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's above that. He's above that. I think probably
he's not 260.
He's not 260. He's not 270 either. And he's I think he's in the high 240s right now, maybe low 250s, something like that. But he's a big guy, massive frame. You see his dad. You see, these are big individuals. But he's he just he's he's fit in real well in a room that I think is filled with a lot of kids with a lot of bright futures. And he's worked well. Didn't try to come in and act like everything was his, and this is just a foregone conclusion that he was going to run the room, and has fit in well from a personality perspective of what I can tell. I'm not in meetings, blah blah blah. But he's most importantly, what do your teammates care about the most at the end of the day? Yeah, how hard are you working, or are you doing all the things to put everybody else around you in as good a place as possible? And he's certainly done that.
Yeah.
And his skill set fits, hardly by accident, I believe, incredibly well with the pieces that they brought in and what I think they're going to look like offensively this year. I think DJ is a great fit for what they want to do. I think, Malik Benson is the perfect wide receiver to go out and get to try to, and Jaylen Brown to a lesser extent, who's probably looked better than I thought he was going to, but we'll talk about that during the wide receiver preview. He's further along than I thought he was going to be. I'll put it that way. I think DJ is on the prefaces of having as good of a year as he's had in college. And I think his skill set is perfect with what Mike's trying to do. And I do think there's going to be a couple games where you look down and you're like, yeah, DJ threw for 400 yards and averaged 20 or something, because there's going to be some very big shot plays in this offense with what he can do and how far he can put the ball down the field, and some of the pieces that are in that wide receiver room that will let him do that.
Completely. So we're going to kind of go with like a 4 downs approach for the preview series this year. I think it kind of keeps us on schedule, which is something we need to make sure we do as an offense as well. First down brought to you by the legendary team. Over 550 loans now to Nolecast listeners. Chad does such a great job with that. 844 FSU loan, 844 FSU loan. Could 550 Nolecast listeners be wrong? I guess, sure, but probably not, right? Wisdom of the crowds, the law of large numbers says Chad does a great job for you. 844 FSU loan is the number to call. So Chad asks, what does success look like for DJ in 2024? So to set the baseline for this before you answer, last year at Oregon State, DJ 336 dropbacks, 180 of 315. So not a high completion percentage. That's in the 50s. Definitely a lot different than Jordan. Jordan was 207 and 324. 2638 yardage, 21-7 touchdown to interception. That's a little different. I mean, Jordan was 20-2, so not a lot of picks. However, we'll note 0 on the fumbles, 0 fumbles lost, and 0 fumble. So DJU, big guy. Granted, like the knockingest on wood of knocks, but in a place that has some nasty weather, man. Like if you watch some of these Oregon State games,
Corvallis is,
very windy last year, by the way. As a gambler, I can tell you that they had massive construction going on at Oregon State last year. So you had that whole part of the stadium that was missing. The winds would whip through there. And at least 2 of their games had insane rain, most notably the game against Washington, where his numbers were terrible. But I'm going to kind of give him an excuse on that one because who else's numbers were terrible? Michael Penix. Who had a pretty nice season there. On the ground, he had 57 rushes for 289. He took only 14 sacks, which is pretty decent actually, considering how long they would hold the ball at times. And he did score 6 rushing touchdowns. So certainly a guy that when they got in the red zone, they would use. I'll also point out that Oregon State had this like super athletic tight end that they would take and use as like a battering ram wildcat thing. So I do think that DJ could have scored more rushing touchdowns for Oregon State had they not had this like freakish guy who was also like an all-world skier in high school that they would just kind of put in and use at times. But are those amazing numbers? Not really. I will say 49% success rate on dropbacks is... Sorry, man. I got this anti-glare thing after 10 p.m. on my computer screen. So some of these are like, give me a second here. Let me kill this anti blue light. There we go. Jordan's success rate last year on dropbacks, 50%. DJ, 49. That's pretty interesting, right? And that includes scrambles and stuff. So, I mean, yeah, I know Jordan had a better year overall, certainly a lot more volume than DJ. And I'm not going to tell you that DJ is a better quarterback than Jordan. I don't think that's the case, but I can see it. Yards per dropback. Jordan 7.8, DJ 7.8. There are some similarities here. Now, I think DJ had a better supporting cast at Oregon State by a small margin than what he has in Tallahassee on offense, but not on defense. Okay. So I'm gonna wind you up for all that. Sacks per pressure, by the way. Jordan 15%. DJ 8. So
yeah, I mean he's hard to bring down, and he's a guy that even as a linebacker's hanging on to him can still get rid of the ball if nothing else, just to throw it into the ground. What does success look like for DJ from my perspective? Cut out some of the glowing air or the rather obvious errors when it comes to throwing on the run. Don't make some of those things that are just crushing to your team, and and to their chances to win. Um, I think it's it's that and just continuing to see how he fits in. I will say, like, look, it's been 3 practices, 2 of which have been in shells, okay? Kyle Morlock looks like a different player to me than he did last year. I will be very interested to see, how they utilize him, how DJ, gets comfortable with him, and, the extent that, he's imagine is going to be featured in the offense pretty early, and then to which DJ can get more comfortable with other pieces in the roster and some of the pieces that we talked about, and then also to an extent, and I'm not trying to make this a wide receiver preview. I feel like to some degree, a lot of this offensive preview will be based off like at what rate does Hakeem Williams come online as
Yeah.
well, and how much does that change the offense for DJ, for Brock, for anybody, for the running backs. I mean, Hakeem has a chance to make this offense much more complete than it would be otherwise, and all the more harder to defend, opening up opportunities from everybody, whether it be running backs, tight ends, etc. So, um, yeah, I think DJ is on the prefaces of having a really solid season, and I do think that he's been everything that they thought he was going to, and maybe a little bit more. And how much can you coach out problems or deficiencies that people have had in their game historically? Probably needs to be evaluated on a case by case basis, right? I do think that they've improved on, at least in practice and stuff, that some of the things that he sees on the run and decisions that he makes on the run. And it has not been uncommon to see DJ just put a ball 30 yards into, out of play if it wasn't there while he's been escaping the pocket. So hopefully you can see some real progress there.
I agree with you all. And I'm glad you said the decisions on the run because, I've heard some of the chatter, and as have you, I'm sure, from sources about how we can improve his performance on the run. I'm like, is that a mechanics thing? Is it a being in better shape type thing? Is it, a coaching thing? But the fact that you said decisions on the run, I think is pretty important. You got a guy named Mastromano who is a damn good punter. You have, in my opinion, one of the very best cornerback combos in the country. Like I think you will have 2 NFL draft picks at corner coming up in the next draft if they perform as they did in the spring and all throughout summer 7-on-7 stuff based on things that we have heard. I also, in some ways, like some of the similarity scores in terms of body types from what you had last year at Oregon State in the receiving core, right? So, Jack Failing, 6'4", 241. Now, Morlock's taller than that, but he's not a lot heavier than that. He's north of 240, but he's not 270, right?
Mhm.
Now, here's something interesting for you. Receiver, Anthony Gould, who got drafted, real speedy guy, good punt returner type dude. 5'8", 172. On the other side, Silas Bolden, 5'8", 157. Oregon State was tiny at receiver last
Mhm.
year. Now, this is pretty important because last year, Florida State was the opposite of that. They were just the absolute redwoods outside. This year, they are much smaller. Now you could tell me Kentron and Darion and those guys are certainly bigger, and that helps. But Benson is not super tall. I mean, he's not tiny, but he's not a contested catch guy based on what we've seen so far throughout his career. But he is really fast. You mentioned Brown. Now Hakeem, totally agree. If you're Mike Norvell and you're
Just
Alex Atkins,
to interrupt you real quickly, though, I'm glad that he has history of throwing to people of that size because
right?
Jalen and Jakai are probably, 2 of your more dangerous pieces that you have on the offense, and those are pieces that you're going to have to incorporate immediately.
Totally. So I do not anticipate that his completion percentage is going to go like wildly through the roof. I would like to see it improve. I mean, Jordan threw for 64%. Like that's unlikely to happen. I think DJ just kind of is who he is within certain constraints. But the fact that he is used to throwing to small targets, yeah. I mean, like I was thinking about this, like, man, yeah, like now the backs at Oregon State, they were thick, man. I mean, Martinez 232, Fenwick, who Fenway got drafted, right? The other back, like, or at least he made a roster. Right? That's a pretty good kid out of like Sarasota area. He was 225. So like they had power backs, power scheme, very small guys on the outside. They ran a lot of jet motion, a lot of orbit motion, finding ways to try to get the ball to those guys in space. I mean, if you're Mike Norvell, that's kind of the challenge. And in some ways, I think based on what you thought you would have had this year at the time that they took DJ. Now you thought you were going to have Destin Hill, but Destin Hill is not 6'4", right?
Mm-hmm.
He's another kind of like very fat. Now, granted, I mean, he's, he hurt his knee. So, I very much doubt you're going to have him, as a major part of the offense this year. Although glad to see him like doing the rehab there on the field. Like that's a very encouraging sign that he's in good spirits there doing that. But if you're Norvell, you got to think, man, not a lot of big bodies in the transfer portal that anybody liked. We're probably going to be a little smaller at receiver this year. A lot of speed. Norvell's like, it's the fastest team we've had. That has to enter into his thinking. I'd like to see DJ, 58, 59%. Maybe if he clips 60, that would be incredible. Okay with the throwaways. 7 picks is not ideal. 2 of those were in that insane game against Washington in the, I don't know. I'm not really sure any quarterback would operate well in those circumstances. You guys can watch that game if you want to. It was just, Washington scored 22 points, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of their big plays was on that crazy 4th down end around. They had the balls to call. So kudos to them for doing so. And then the game against Oregon, it was 54%. They threw a pick there. I think the whole Oregon State team kind of pseudo quit when the report started to leak out their coach was leaving for Michigan State, right before the big, Civil War game that they'd play. But a guy that you can use to run the ball in the red zone. Certainly, I don't think he's going to break off long touchdowns for you, but he's certainly quicker than fast at times, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But he's a guy I think you could do some design quarterback runs with. And if you're that old, I know there's the whole thing, man, about like, the second year transfer quarterback deal. Like the second year in the system is when a lot of these guys explode. But I wonder how much of that is familiarity with the offense and how much of that is just you have an adult playing college football. You know what I mean? Nick's old as hell. Penix old as hell. Like old guys. DJ's old. And I wonder how much that helps. So I'd like to see slightly improved completion percentage, maintain a very low fumble rate. If you can keep that sack avoidance rate anywhere close to what that was, that would be exceptional. Let's go second down here. This is from, actually, Matt Lewis did not send this in, but this second down is sponsored by Congruity. Edgar, hit me with a Congruity read.
No, congruityhr.com. Fantastic people. We've worked with them for, I believe, 4 or 5 years now. Had more than 25 Seminole-owned businesses. Reach out to Matt and explore working with him as well, and nothing but positive feedback from that, whether it be one of my better friends in Robin Alston or whoever else. Quick to recommend Matt Lewis and his team and thank them for what they've done as far as making the Nolecast possible.
All right, so this question is, do we think FSU will work in Brock Glenn during games like Kansas State did with Avery Johnson, like Oregon State did with Childs, or like Oklahoma did with Jackson Arnold?
I don't know that there would be a plan for, I don't think it's going to be planned that Brock's going to take the first set of downs in the second quarter or something like that, but at the same time, depends. Again, it's only 3 practices in. Brock Glenn has looked incredible. And again, 3 practices, we'll see. You haven't had a scrimmage. You haven't put on full pads. But Brock looks like a different player than he did last year. So to an extent, some of that will be dictated. I'm not super familiar with what Mike did at Memphis, but I don't know that Mike has done that historically as far as kind of having situational starters or not a situation in which there's someone outside of his starter. I'll put it that way. And it's not, you know, Brock has a bright future and Brock has looked great, but Brock's not somebody that runs a 4-3-2 or something. You know, it's not some totally different dynamic that you're bringing into your offense. I think Brock's going to get chances. I think Brock, you know, you'll see him. But I would, you know, does he take the third set of downs against Georgia Tech or something like that? Nah, that would surprise me.
I'm glad you brought that up too, because the examples that we gave there, Avery Johnson might be the most athletic player on Kansas State's entire team, not just
Mhm.
quarterback room, but team. Childs, I think, is the most talented passer in the Big Ten. Like, and also got some serious wheels. Like the guy that DJ, I, I I don't want people to take it as a knock that he was sharing reps with Childs at times. Like Childs, I think, has potential to be like, first round pick type good if he hits. There's no doubt about that. The other aspect here, so you're right, it's not really a changeup of styles. You're not getting something different there. Um, I looked at Mike in 2017, 2018, and 2019 in Memphis. The second leading passer in 17 had 10 attempts.
Mhm.
The second leading passer in 18 had 14 attempts, and the second leading passer in 19 had 15 attempts. So almost no attempts. But at the same time, I did two things are true. One, Mike does like to get his starters a lot of reps in games. And I wonder if the Jordan injury is going to make him a little change on that. Uh, Not in blowouts, but in games that are comfortable. Do you get the kid in? Maybe you get your starters out a little bit earlier if you don't need style points. Although, heck, maybe you need some
Mhm.
style points. I don't
Mhm.
know. It kind of depends on what the rest of the conference and the college ball playoff race and landscape look like. But the other thing here, what are the odds that Mike had a quarterback at Memphis behind Brady White that he really
Yeah.
like wanted to get in the game?
That's a great point. That's a totally different data point. And that is where there's a lot of things different than being at Memphis for Florida State or whatever, but that is true. You know, these pieces that are number 2 on your roster are so much more talented than that of what you had at your past stop that it's certainly worth pointing that out when we look at it. No, Brock has looked really good. Brock has looked like a guy that is you know, grown an awful lot and has put in a ton of work. He is, you know, I don't know. This is a silly term sometimes, but he is a leader in that group. I've been impressed by what I've seen from Brock so far, and really excited to see what it looks like in you know, once you get to putting on full pads. The only knock that I've seen of Brock so far is that in 7-on-7 and stuff, there's times where he tucks the ball and run, which is not, you know, really applicable to,
The AJ Duffy move.
yeah. So, but also he's working with a lot of second and third team wide receivers that, based off Mike's reaction post play, I'm not sure did exactly what was asked of him either. So I will add that caveat in there. But Brock's still learning the offense. But uh, look, it was the first day of practice, so all the disclaimers you want to put on that. But I think we were like 30 minutes into practice before a ball that Brock Glenn threw wasn't exactly where it was supposed to be. It was really one of the better practices on air that I've seen anybody have in a while. So you got to really like what you've seen from Brock, and it'll be interesting to see how involved he gets in the offense this year.
And I think, to your point, I'm glad you brought this up. It's not that DJ is playing poorly to where it's not Brock's here and DJ's coming to Brock. It's like
Hmm.
Brock is coming to DJ a little bit, right? Like that. If you're judging Brock off what you saw last year, I think that's a mistake. I mean, this is a guy who was hurt in fall camp, right? Didn't really get recovered for a while. And then when you
Got
saw him
hurt
against Louisville,
in
like he
the.
definitely gets hurt against Louisville.
Well, he got hurt in the either there was Southern Miss or he got hurt in one of the early games
Yeah.
and had to come back from injury to even, you know, be there for the championship game. So yeah,
Um, yeah. I think
maybe it was Duke. I can't remember.
I know that they think they have something with Brock Glenn.
Mhm.
Like, is that going to be a superstar? I don't know, but they the way they coach him is definitely like you coach guys that you believe in hard. You know what I mean? I know they
Mhm.
want to coach everybody hard, but like you get that level of attention.
Yep.
All right, third down, of course, by our friends, not Matt Lewis, Matt Thompson.
Madison Social, Township, all the institutions that they are. I've recently talked about Social Kitchen, which is a fantastic option up there on the north side of town. for prepared meals, and they've also got some great little grab and go sandwiches, steak Sammy, Reuben, all the classics, but also Snake River Farms if you are looking for incredibly high quality meat. But Charlie Park is a spot that we always want to remind you of, right over there in the Cascade Park District. Charlie Park Rooftop Bar .com is the website. Certainly would recommend reservations on busy weekends or game weekends or whatever else. Charlie Park, fantastic place, and thank Matt and his team for more than I believe it's a decade now support of the Nolecast.
No doubt, man. I absolutely love having them as our sponsor. So, how do we think the offense needs to look differently to maximize its efficiency with DJ?
Well, yeah.
Not giving away state secrets.
No, we're not giving away state secrets, and we're going to do the running back preview here shortly. But I mean, you're going to lean heavily on your running backs, and here's the good news: I think you got 6 of them that you can lean on, and I'm not being hyperbolic either. I know you got a problem at running back; you got so many talented kids, and that's a great problem to have. But I can't wait to see what it looks like. I mean, Toa Philly, the Alabama kid looks incredibly
Roydale.
good. Yeah, Roydale looks fantastic. You hit on Cam and Danzy. I can go ahead and tell you that right away. Danzy looks very, very special. Now, I don't know, his future may be at wide receiver some as well. But, long story short, back to the quarterbacks. You're going to lean on this running back room, and you've got a lot of legs to do so. You went out, you got a guard from Alabama and a guard from Florida, both who've looked. Richie Leonard's looked really, really good at times, and I think is going to be a fantastic addition to this offense. And first team left tackle, all ACC, Darius Washington. I think you're going to run the ball heavily, and you're going to take deep shots. And I think that's a great blend for what DJ is and how he can help you and work the tight ends. And I also, and look, I'm not giving away any secrets because they haven't worn pads, but it wouldn't surprise me to see DJ run the ball fairly, I don't want to say fairly frequently, but you'll get him involved in reads. You'll get him involved in quarterback draws, in my opinion. You're just going to have to respect the fact that, as a defender, the guy you're trying to bring down is 6'5", 250 and is a pretty damn good athlete. Again, like you said, much, much more quick than fast, but a guy who can pull the ball down and pick up 8 yards pretty easily. And, look, anybody that gets hit by a D1 defender doesn't mean they're not going to feel it, but DJ can absorb some blows and get right back up and get back in the huddle and lead your offense for the next play. So I'm fascinated to see how they use him as a runner and how selective they are in deploying that.
His processing has never been like a super strength of his game. So I think if you're the staff, you have to acknowledge that and kind of work around that. It's more kind of predefined, understanding where to go with the ball. We do not know how Florida State will utilize, or well, we know they will utilize it, obviously, but to what effect it will have with the in-helmet communication. But there is some chance that really helps DJ just in terms of reminding him, hey, you do have what is probably a very good defense behind you and an All-American candidate at punter. So if this isn't open, take off and chuck it in the stands. We'll live to fight another down. I will remind the audience that in 2018 and 2019, Memphis running backs combined to catch about 150 balls. Mm-hmm. So it's about 75 a year. Last year, FSU's backs caught 50. So, that's a 75 versus 50 is not nothing. I think that you have a lot of guys who are running backs on this team, as you mentioned. Danzy is a guy who can be a game breaker. Jalen Lucas could be a game breaker for you. Toa Philly is really a nice catcher of the football from the running back position. I think you probably need to operate at a more heavy personnel, more two-back stuff, some pistol, as you mentioned in the open. Morlock looking better is huge. And that's not unreasonable to think Morlock can be better, given that he was playing for not FCS, but freaking D2 school the year before. More predefined plays, probably a lot of screen game stuff. If you don't have a lot of receivers that get themselves open, but they do have the ability to do things once the ball's in their hands, then you think you need to consult back on what you have done, and then at places where DJ has had some success. Clemson ran a boatload of orbit when orbit motion, just like Oregon State did when DJ was having some success there at Clemson. So finding ways to get the ball in space, probably more passes behind the line of scrimmage than FSU threw last year too. Now that seems antithetical to the idea of go deep, but I think it probably does mean like fewer, hey, go 5 wide, do the Jordan thing where it's just like pick it and let him read it out and just get the ball out quick type thing. Deep shots, play action, to where if you do throw interceptions, they're deep interceptions. Interception depth matters a lot, right? If you throw a pick at the line of scrimmage, much more likely to turn to a pick six than if you throw a pick 40 or 50 yards downfield. That is, if we have an arm punt or 3 this year, probably won't kill me, right? So I think more heavy personnel that forces defenses to match your heavy personnel with their heavy personnel. Like how many teams have good coverage linebackers who can cover if you're in a 2-back set with Toafili? Like, are you going to play FSU in nickel if they line up with 2 receivers and 2 backs and a tight end? I think you have to force defenses to make choices or to make personnel choices. And you might want to throw the ball against heavy looks, out of your heavy looks. And that may be something that they're able to do well with DJ. 4th down. Is this the end of Florida State's quarterback transfer consecutive cycle? I could probably ask that question better, but we're doing a bunch of these. Apologies.
Yeah, so if you think about it, I mean, technically, until Tate or Brock took a snap, every snap by a quarterback under Mike Norvell had been a transfer. Is that right? Jordan and the kid from UCF, whose name I blank on right now.
McKenzie.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, look, this may be a wildly talented, who knows? You can predict whatever the hell you want to predict as to what the portal is going to look like in January. Who knows? Maybe it's a wildly talented class, and there's all sorts of great quarterbacks to choose from. I think DJ may be the last of the transfer quarterbacks for Mike Norvell for extended period of time. Like Luke Kromenhawk looks like a freshman, still learning the offense, has some plays where they, looks like a future first-round pick, and looks like a plays where he's going through his, still a freshman going through practice. But Luke is an incredible piece of which to build around for the future. You have 2 really talented quarterbacks committed in both senior and junior in high school currently. I think and then you got a really talented walk-on to further, bolster that group. I would be surprised to see Florida State go out in the transfer portal for a starter. Now maybe they go out and get somebody else just as if they aren't sure that Luke's not there at the end of the year, or they haven't been able to get him enough reps that they need a number 2 or something like that. But at this point, I think you're going to start going high school as to how the route the kids have joined your program, developed them, and DJ may be the last of the transfer portal quarterbacks for Mike Norvell, at least for the foreseeable future.
I think so too, man. I mean, what are the odds that Brock or Luke or Jackson don't hit? I mean, not 0, but I don't think they're high, right? At least people I talk to seem pretty high on this room. So I am as well, just based on what I hear, what I've seen, what I saw of them as recruits as well. So
I think as long as your quarterback coach is there, doesn't take a job, and you see some kind of exodus tied to that, I would expect this to probably be the last of the starting transfer portal additions at quarterback.
Agreed, man. It's been fun. I honestly, I feel better about FSU's quarterback position after talking this out with you than I did before we hit record. Like this is good.
It's gonna be fun, man. I can't wait. I can't wait till pads come on and scrimmages come, and you get a little bit better idea as to what this looks like. But so far, I think Florida State coaches and supporters have to like where they are. The quarterback room have to like the progress that they've seen from this position. So it's just great to get back into these position previews. I remember the first time we ever did them. exciting as hell. Still find them to be really fun to do. Great barometer as to where we are in the college football calendar. And this has been the first one, and we'll be back with a couple different offensive previews here, and then slide over to defense. So, Mingram, that's Bud. This has been the Nolecast.
Also, check us out. August 10th, Tampa Seminole Club kickoff. It was a blast last year, and we will be there again this year. So come see us. Event or details are in the show notes. See y'all.